Success Sparks feature in Ignite Success is with Candace Moody of CareerSource. Welcome, Candace.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So I know that you've got an extensive background as a writer. You write for the Jacksonville Business Journal, and you've written for other organizations, and you've been at CareerSource for over 20 years. Is that right?
That's correct.
So I'm sure there's a lot of information you have these days about people with careers, and there's a lot of change for people, particularly with technology, robotics, things like that. What are you seeing as trends in careers, and what advice do you have for people around their careers?
Well, in case you haven't noticed, we're in the hottest job market in a decade.
Right.
After that terrible, scarring recession, we're really now in a great boom. So almost anybody who would like to have a job can have a job. And this is a great time for you to be thinking about what you really, really want to be doing, and to think about how the future of work is going to affect what you do.
Right.
One of the things you asked about was automation, and that's a big concern for a lot of people. We're concerned that whole swaths of the economy might be swallowed up by automation. So as a worker, one of the most important things you can do is to think about, how do I add value with my human part of what I do to the work that I'm putting out every day. So basically there's a formula. If your job consists of a series of decisions all day, if this, do that, if that, do this, your job is probably going to be swallowed up by AI or software or robotics in the next decade. That's a scary thought.
It is, but I also understand equally so, because I've read a couple articles about this, that the human component and our emotional intelligence and our ability to relate to other people is going to be even more important, so that those people who are in those kinds of jobs who might be phased out due to robotics, their skill sets can be used in other areas. Do you recommend they go and get other training and keep doing lifelong learning?
Yes, of course. That's always a recommendation. And one of the interesting things I think is going to happen, that most of the jobs, probably up to 60-70% of jobs in the future, are going to be working alongside robotics or artificial intelligence, and doing the programming, building, repairing, all of the correcting course, all of those things. It's going to take humans to be able to train robots to act more like humans. And so there's a whole a segment of people who are going to work as comedians and playwrights and screenwriters and writers, trying to make voices like Siri and like Alexa sound human.
That's interesting. And so what mistakes do you see people making with their careers these days?
It's the same mistake we've been making for decades, and that is thinking that job security is the most important thing to look for when you're seeking a new career. Job security, in my mind, is sort of a myth we've created, a fairy tale we've told ourselves for a long time. What I'm finding is that the one way to really be secure in your career is to make sure that you're in charge of your talent and your time and the way you're distributing your time. Everybody knows that you're supposed to diversify your investments, right? Never put all your eggs in one basket. I've been talking recently about diversifying your income streams. Making sure that you have a side gig or some kind of work that you control, that you can do more of when things are tough and less of when you're in a great job. But even I, who have a full-time job with CareerSource that I love, I have 4 paying gigs that I can rely on. So it takes more than one business decision to put me out of work. And I think that's the only true economic security a worker can ask for.
You know, I think that's really true. I mean, I learned years ago as a professional speaker, I've got my books and my products that sell. I've got webinars, I've got seminars, I do coaching, I do emceeing. There's a whole variety of things, and you do have to have multiple streams of income. It's very important for your future success. So we all should be learning from our mistakes. You shared with me a little bit about the imposter syndrome. Can you talk about that?
I think anybody who's anybody has felt at some point like I'm a fake. And imposter, I've written about imposter syndrome. It strikes women more than men. We're sort of hardwired to worry about whether or not we're doing the right things and whether we really know what we're doing. I think the great thing about being in my 7th decade of existence these days is that I stopped worrying about that. I realized that everybody was just making it up as they went along, and my ideas were just as good as everybody else's. But I wish I could go back and teach 20-year-old Candace that same lesson. I think a lot of us spend years and years, waste years of our lives worrying that we're not getting it right and that somehow somebody's going to find out we're not as smart and as good as everyone tells us we are. And that's such a waste of human energy and potential.
It is.
I'd love to see that stomped out sometime. I'm going to make it my personal mission.
Well, and I think it's unfortunate because in today's world with social media, there's so much comparison and people judge themselves very harshly. Women, we are our biggest critics, and I think that shows up a great deal.
We compare our insides to everyone else's outsides.
Right.
And social media the last decade or so has just made that exponentially harder. And I worry about the young girls, the teenagers who are coming up behind us who are going to be afraid to try. If you can't hit a home run, don't even go to bat, and I think that's a shame.
Well, and unfortunately, there's an astronomical increase in suicides among young girls, too, and I think the two are connected.
I think so. Eating disorders and all this anxiety about success. And so competing against other people is a losing proposition.
Right.
Being the best you can is all you can ask.
That's right. Any other advice you have for people today?
I'm giving lots of advice these days about the idea of side gigs, to treat your career like a consulting practice. Even if you're invested in a full-time job and doing well and really loving it, you can be entrepreneurial within a large company as well. You get to be the person who starts new things, who provides value. And I think that's the way you're going to build both economic security and freedom for the rest of your career.
Well, thanks so much for being with us, Candace. We appreciate it.
It was so much fun.